Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I never thought my marriage would end with a single text message. Funny how life works. One moment, you're grinding away at work, pushing through exhaustion because that's what a husband does. You tell yourself, I'm providing. I'm building something with her. You ignore the little things, the late nights out, the sudden secrecy with her phone, the way she turns her back on you in bed. And then, out of nowhere, you see the truth. It started at 9:42 p.m. I was still at the office, finishing up some last-minute reports, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I frowned, hesitating before opening it. You should know where your wife is right now. Attached was a photo. I wish I could say my first reaction was shock or anger, but what I felt was nothing. Just this cold, sinking emptiness that started in my stomach and spread through my chest. It was a high-end restaurant, one I recognized immediately, the kind of place she always claimed was too expensive for date night. And there she was, Anna, my wife, smiling, laughing. Her hand rested on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. He was leaning in close. Too close. His hand was on her thigh. I stared at the image for a long time, like I was trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe. No. Stop. The longer I looked, the clearer it became. She was comfortable. She was enjoying it. The way she angled her body toward him, the way her lips curved in that soft, intimate way I hadn't seen in months. This wasn't just dinner. This was something else. My mouth went dry. I scrolled back through my messages, looking for signs, looking for anything that would have prepared me for this moment. Nothing. It was like getting sucker punched by a ghost. Then another text came through. You deserve to know the truth. I clenched my jaw. Who the hell is this? Who would send me this? A friend? A stranger? Someone trying to stir up drama? I typed back. Who is this? No response. I checked the clock. 9:47 p.m. She wasn't home yet. I was supposed to be working late tonight. She thought I'd be in the office until midnight. I could go home, pretend I never saw the message, wait for her to walk in, watch her smile, kiss my cheek like nothing was wrong. I could pretend. Or, I exhaled slowly, feeling something sharp and heavy settle in my chest. I grabbed my keys. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. The drive to the restaurant was a blur. I kept seeing the image in my head. Anna's laugh, her soft smile, the way she leaned into that bastard like he was her world. I should have been livid, furious, but all I felt was a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching someone else's life implode in real time. As I pulled into the parking lot, I scanned the cars lined up near the entrance. Her black sedan was there. She's still inside. I sat there for a moment, my fingers gripping the steering wheel. How was I going to do this? Walk up to her table and demand an explanation? Drag her outside like some enraged idiot? No. I needed to see it. Really see it. I got out of the car and walked into the restaurant. The moment I stepped inside, the scent of overpriced steaks and cheap cologne hit me. Soft piano music played in the background, and dim golden lights cast a warm glow over everything. The place was packed, couples, groups of friends, business meetings. But I wasn't looking at any of them. I was looking for her. It didn't take long. There she was, sitting in a corner booth, a candle flickering between her and him. I stopped cold. Seeing it in a photo was one thing. Seeing it in real life? That was something else entirely. She looked happy, relaxed, like she belonged there. And him? Tall, good-looking in an artificial, gym bro kind of way. A little too polished. The kind of guy who spent more time admiring himself in the mirror than anything else. And that smirk, like he had already won. Something inside me twisted. They hadn't noticed me yet. For a brief moment, I thought about turning around and walking away. Just leaving. Pretending this never happened. But then, she laughed, and he reached across the table, sliding his hand over hers. That was it. That was the moment everything inside me went cold. I started walking toward them. This wasn't over. The moment I stepped toward their table, everything else faded into the background. The restaurant, the soft music, the quiet hum of conversation. It all became static, meaningless noise. All I could see was her. Anna, my wife, sitting across from another man. His hand was still resting on hers, fingers lightly tracing circles against her skin. It was intimate, familiar, effortless. Like this wasn't the first time. Like I was the outsider here. Something inside me clenched, hard and unforgiving. But I kept my face blank. I walked up to their table, slow and deliberate. She didn't notice me at first. Neither did he. Not until I spoke. Anna. Her name cut through the air like a gunshot. Her head snapped up, eyes going wide, her entire body tensing in a way that told me everything I needed to know. Guilt. Pure, unfiltered guilt. That was confirmation enough. But it was his reaction that set my blood boiling. He didn't flinch. Didn't let go of her hand. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, cool as ever, and gave me that smirk. The same one from the photo. The same one that said, "Yeah, I know exactly who you are. And I don't care." My fingers twitched at my sides. I wanted to break his jaw right then and there. But not yet. Not yet. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice steady, calm too calm. Anna's mouth opened and closed, her throat bobbing as she struggled for words. This isn't. I scoffed. "This isn't what it looks like?" She flinched. Even she knew that excuse was pathetic. My eyes flicked to him. He wasn't nervous. Not even a little. That told me two things. He thought he had nothing to be afraid of. She had already prepared him for this possibility. He was expecting me. That realization made something sharp and ice-cold settle in my chest. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Her choice. I inhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay grounded. "You want to introduce me?" I asked, my gaze locked on hers. Anna exhaled, rubbing her temples like she had a headache. Like I was the problem. "This isn't the time," she muttered, eyes darting around the restaurant. Now it made sense. She wasn't ashamed of what she'd done. She was ashamed that I had shown up to witness it. I took a step closer, palms flat against the table. "What's wrong, Anna? You didn't mind being seen with him before." Her jaw clenched. Her lover, because let's not sugarcoat it, that's what he was, finally spoke. "Look, man," he said, "I don't know what you think is happening here, but it..." I turned my head slowly, my eyes locking onto his like a scope zeroing in on a target. "I wasn't talking to you." His mouth clamped shut. "Good." I looked back at Anna. "I'm waiting." She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "His name is Jordan," she finally mumbled. Jordan. The name felt insignificant. Like he was insignificant. But the way he sat there, relaxed, arrogant, like he had already won, made my fists twitch. I turned my gaze back to him. "You enjoying my wife, Jordan?" His smirk widened. And that's when I knew. He was waiting for me to lose control. Waiting for me to snap, throw a punch, make a scene, so he could play the victim. Anna must have told him I was the angry, jealous husband. That was the story they had prepared for. I wasn't going to give it to them. Not yet. Instead, I smiled. A slow, calculated smile that made his cockiness flicker, just for a second. "You must be feeling pretty confident," I said, keeping my voice even. "Sitting here with another man's wife." Holding her hand. His smirk faltered. "Barely. She's not your wife anymore," he said. A simple sentence. Casual. Like it was a fact. Like he had already replaced me. And then, Anna stood up. She placed a hand on my arm, her touch gentle, like she was trying to calm me. "Let's go home and talk about this," she whispered. Home. Like we still had one. Like she hadn't just burned it to the ground. I stared at her hand on my arm, feeling a bitter laugh rise in my throat. "Oh, now she wants to talk?" Before I could respond, Jordan chuckled. "I listened to her, man," he said, shaking his head. "You're embarrassing yourself." And then, Anna slapped me. Crack. The sound echoed in the restaurant. The whole place went dead silent. I barely felt the pain, because the humiliation burned hotter. People were staring now, diners, waiters, bartenders. Eyes wide. Mouth slightly open. I turned my head slowly, the sting settling into my cheek. She was breathing hard, hands shaking slightly, her expression twisted with something between anger and panic. She knew she had crossed a line. She knew what she had just done. But she wasn't sorry. And Jordan? He laughed. That smug, arrogant laugh that made my vision go red. That was it. That was the moment I decided he was leaving this restaurant a different man. I slowly turned to face him, rolling my shoulders, feeling my muscles tighten. Jordan's laughter faded as he finally saw the look in my eyes. I took a step closer. "You think this is funny?" His smirk returned, forced now, but still there. "A little, yeah," he said. I nodded. "Good." And then I swung. Everything froze the moment my wife's palm cracked against my face. I didn't feel pain. Not right away. What I did feel was the heat of humiliation creeping up my neck, burning through my chest, settling like a weight in my stomach. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Eyes on me. On her. On him. Anna's chest was heaving, her eyes wide, lips slightly parted. like even she couldn't believe what she had just done. And then, Jordan laughed. A low, smug chuckle, like I was some kind of joke. He leaned back in his chair, shook his head, and let out another mocking little snort. Man, he said, rubbing his jaw, I almost feel bad for you. I turned to look at him slowly. For a brief second, he must have thought I wasn't going to do anything, that I was just going to take it, that I was going to let them sit there, basking in my humiliation, while the rest of the restaurant watched me crumble. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not even hate. Just a cold, dangerous kind of clarity. This was a choice. She had chosen to slap me. He had chosen to laugh. And now? I was going to choose what happened next. I clenched my jaw, rolled my shoulders, and took a slow step toward him. Let me ask you something, Jordan. His smirk stayed, but I saw his fingers tighten slightly around his drink. Yeah. I let the question hang in the air, stretching the silence just long enough for his confidence to waver. Then, in one explosive movement, I threw a punch. Crack. My fist slammed into his jaw. His head snapped to the side so violently that he nearly fell out of his chair. Gasps filled the restaurant. Dishes clattered. Someone screamed. Jordan crashed into the table, knocking over a wine glass, sending silverware clattering to the floor. Anna gasped, reaching for him. Jordan. He was stunned. He blinked rapidly, touching his face, his fingers coming away red. The smirk? Gone. I stood over him, my fists clenched, my breathing slow and steady. You still think it's funny? I asked. He coughed, spitting blood onto the white tablecloth. And then, he lunged. Jordan wasn't a fighter. That much was obvious. But adrenaline makes men stupid. He came at me fast, too wild. He swung blindly, aiming for my ribs, but I dodged. He tried again. This time, I caught his arm mid-swing, twisted his wrist, and drove my knee into his stomach. Whump. He gasped, doubling over, eyes bulging as the air left his lungs. His body collapsed against mine for half a second, and I could hear his ragged breathing. Anna was shrieking now, trying to pull me back. Stop it. You're insane. Stop. But I didn't stop. Because this wasn't just about her. This was about me. About every single moment of self-doubt. Every lie I had ignored. Every sleepless night I had spent thinking I was the problem. Every single time she had turned away from me in bed, acting like I wasn't worth her time. This was about more than just a slap. It was about respect. And Jordan? He had none. I let go of his arm, grabbed him by his shirt, and slammed him face first into the table. Smash. Glass shattered. A plate went flying. He groaned, struggling against me. I let him fall to the floor, coughing, wheezing, spitting out blood. And then I saw it. A tooth. Lying there, amongst the broken glass. Jordan groaned, cupping his mouth, his eyes wide with shock. For the first time that night, he actually looked afraid. He crawled backward, scrambling like a wounded animal, trying to put space between us. You, he croaked, blood dripping from his lips. You broke my fucking tooth. I wiped my knuckles on my sleeve and crouched down beside him. My voice was calm. Deadly. You should have kept your mouth shut. Anna was shaking. She wasn't screaming anymore. She wasn't angry. She was terrified. Not for Jordan. For herself. For the first time in her life, she was seeing me as someone who wouldn't just take whatever she gave me. I turned to her. She flinched. I let that hang between us for a moment before I spoke. You slapped me, I said, my voice even. Her lips parted, but no words came out. You humiliated me, I continued. In front of him. In front of everyone. I gestured to Jordan. Was it worth it? She stayed silent. I nodded slowly. Then I turned, walking past them, ignoring the whispers, the horrified stares. As I reached the exit, I paused and glanced over my shoulder. Jordan was still on the floor, groaning. Anna was kneeling beside him, her hands hovering uselessly over his face like she didn't know what to do. And me? I smiled. Not because I enjoyed the violence. Not because I was proud of what I had done. But because for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. And that felt good. The restaurant was in chaos. Somewhere in the background, waiters shouted. People gasped, plates clattered, and footsteps shuffled as diners scrambled to get out of the way. But none of that mattered, because all I saw was him, Jordan, bleeding, on the floor. His breath was coming in sharp, pained wheezes. One hand was pressed against his swollen jaw, the other flat against the tile as he tried to push himself up. He looked up at me, and in his eyes, I finally saw it. Fear. The confidence? The smug arrogance? The idea that he had already won? Gone. He licked his split lip, wincing. His fingers brushed over the gap in his teeth, and his entire body tensed. You crazy son of a... I didn't let him finish. I grabbed his collar and yanked him forward. His body lurched, but before he could react, I drove my fist into his gut. Thump. He let out a strangled gasp, his body going rigid as the air left his lungs in a violent whoosh. His hands clawed at my arms, but I didn't let go. I hit him again. And again. Each punch was controlled, precise, targeted to hurt. His ribs. His gut. The soft spots he would feel tomorrow. By the third hit, he wasn't fighting back anymore. He was gasping for air, his head dropping, his entire body curling inward like a broken doll. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I let him go, just for a second. Long enough for him to stumble back against the table, clutching his ribs. I straightened, rolling my shoulders, flexing my fingers, and giving him one last chance. One last opportunity to do the smart thing. To stay down. But no. The bastard made a mistake. He spit at my feet. A mix of blood and saliva. He glared at me, eyes filled with something desperate. You think you're some tough guy? He rasped, his voice broken and breathless. He pushed himself upright, shoulders hunched, chest rising and falling in ragged bursts. You think beating me changes anything? Huh? You think? I took one step forward. And he swung. It was a pathetic punch. Sloppy. Weak. I barely had to move to avoid it. His fist swiped through empty air, his own momentum making him stumble forward. And that's when I caught him. I grabbed the back of his shirt, yanked him forward, and slammed my knee into his face. Crack. Something broke. His nose. His teeth. Something. He let out a garbled, wet scream before crumpling to the floor. Done. Finished. Motionless. Blood smeared the tile beneath him. His fingers twitched weakly, like he was trying to move, trying to push himself up, trying to do something. But he couldn't. I had taken that away from him. And it felt good. Anna was crying. She wasn't screaming anymore. No. Now she just looked, shocked, shaken. Like she was looking at someone she didn't recognize. You broke him. She whispered, her voice shaking. I turned to her, breathing slow and steady. Broke him? I repeated. I glanced down at Jordan, his swollen, bloody face, his limp arms, the pathetic groan slipping from his lips. Then I looked back at Anna. No, I said. I just showed him what happens when you laugh at a man like me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I waited. I waited for the fire. The anger. The usual righteous indignation. But there was none. Because for the first time in our entire marriage, she didn't have the upper hand. She wasn't in control. And she knew it. Her gaze flickered toward Jordan, then back to me. And I saw it. The regret. The moment she realized exactly what she had thrown away. I took a slow step back, cracking my knuckles. In the distance, sirens wailed. Someone had called the cops. Didn't matter. I wasn't running. I turned, making my way toward the exit. I walked past the whispering tables, past the horrified faces of strangers, past the waitstaff still frozen in shock. And I didn't care. I stepped outside, letting the cool night air calm the fire in my veins. My face still stung from Anna's slap. But I barely noticed. Because this time, I had hit back. The night air felt cool against my skin as I stepped outside the restaurant, my hands still aching from the fight. I took a deep breath, rolling my shoulders, letting the tension settle. Behind me, inside that overpriced, dimly lit bistro, Jordan lay broken. And Anna? Still staring at him. Still processing what had just happened. What she had caused. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt victorious. But standing there, with the sounds of sirens growing closer, I felt something else. Relief. Because it was over. No more pretending. No more trying to fix something that had been rotting for years. No more holding on to a woman who had already let me go. I had been blind for too long. But now I could see everything. The first cruiser pulled up, red and blue lights flashing violently against the dark street. A second car followed. Doors flew open. 2 officers stepped out, hands hovering near their holsters, eyes scanning the restaurant entrance before landing on me. I didn't move. I wasn't going to run. A few seconds later, the doors swung open behind me. Anna came rushing out, panicked, frantic. Officers. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes darting between me and them. She hesitated. For the first time that night, she hesitated. Good. One of the cops, a tall guy with a sharp gaze, gestured to me. Sir, put your hands where we can see them. I sighed but complied, lifting my hands slowly. Want to tell us what happened here? the officer asked. I glanced back at the restaurant. Through the large glass windows, I could still see Jordan on the floor, barely moving, a few employees standing over him. The other officer clicked his radio. We got an injured party inside. Looks like a serious assault. Anna sucked in a sharp breath. The first cop's gaze flicked between me and her. Sir, did you attack the man inside? I could feel Anna's eyes burning into me. Waiting to see what I'd say. Waiting to see if I'd go down for this. I met her gaze. And then I smiled. Self-defense. Inside the restaurant, Jordan was getting checked over by paramedics, groaning through his swollen face. One of the officers pulled me aside while the other questioned Anna. Walk me through it, the cop said, voice even. I exhaled, keeping my expression calm. I came here to meet my wife, I said, glancing toward Anna. Didn't expect to find her here with him. The officer didn't react, just nodded, jotting something in his notebook. Go on. I shrugged. They laughed at me, mocked me. Then my wife, I gestured to my cheek, still stinging from her slap. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. She hit you first? Yeah, I said simply. And then Jordan decided to get cute. So I handled it. The cop sighed, rubbing his temple. Handled it? What does that mean? I leaned in slightly. Means he won't be laughing anymore. While I was giving my statement, Anna was pleading with the other officer. I swear, he just snapped, she said, her voice shrill. He attacked Jordan for no reason. The cop raised a brow. Your husband said you slapped him first. Anna blinked. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue. But she didn't. Because she couldn't. The restaurant was full of witnesses. People saw everything. Anna had started this. And now, for the first time ever, she was realizing that there were consequences. Her fingers curled into fists. She wasn't used to this, being on the losing side. Look, she said, her voice lower now, trying to sound reasonable. My husband has anger issues. He just lost control. You understand, right? The cop studied her for a long second. And then, with the slightest hint of amusement, he said, If your husband has anger issues, why did you slap him? Anna froze. Her face flushed. Because that was the moment she realized she had lost. By the time everything settled, the cops decided there wasn't enough to arrest me. Self-defense. Witnesses confirmed it. And while Jordan might try to press charges, he'd have a hard time explaining why he provoked a married man while touching his wife. But none of that mattered. Because I was done. As I stepped back onto the street, Anna followed, her heels clicking hurriedly against the pavement. Wait, she said, grabbing my arm. We need to talk. I turned, staring down at her hand on me. She let go. Talk about what? I asked, my voice calm. She looked flustered. We should go home and, I laughed. Loudly. Right in her face. Home. I repeated, shaking my head. Anna, I don't have a home anymore. Not with you. She blanched. You're being ridiculous. She snapped, anger returning now that the fear had faded. You think you can just walk away? I stepped closer. I don't think, Anna, I whispered. I know. Her jaw clenched. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there. And for the first time in our entire marriage, she was the one who got left behind. I walked away from Anna that night, but the aftermath of what happened at the restaurant followed me like a storm cloud. It wasn't just about the fight. It wasn't just about the slap. It was about everything. Everything that had led up to that moment. And now? Now the fallout was about to hit hard. 2 days after the fight, I was sitting in my apartment. My new apartment. I had already packed my things and left our house. Not because I was guilty. Not because I had to. But because I wanted to. I refused to sleep in a house that had been tainted by betrayal. So there I was, still adjusting to the silence of living alone, when my phone buzzed. My lawyer. I answered. Got news for you, he said. Your wife filed for divorce. I exhaled slowly. Not surprised. Not upset. Just relieved. Good, I said. There was a pause. She's asking for spousal support, he added. I laughed. Laughed. You're kidding. I wish I was. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temple. Let me get this straight. She cheats, she slaps me in public, and she thinks I'm going to pay for her lifestyle. Yep, my lawyer said, sighing. And she's claiming emotional distress from the fight at the restaurant. Says you put her in danger by attacking her boyfriend. I clenched my jaw. Of course she was. Of course she was trying to twist this into her being the victim. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Fight it, I said. Every single part of it. Drag this out if you have to. She gets nothing. My lawyer chuckled. Already ahead of you. While Anna was busy trying to play the victim, Jordan was dealing with his own nightmare. The video of the fight? It had gone viral. Somebody in the restaurant had filmed the whole thing: Anna's slap, Jordan's smug laughter, and then me breaking his face. The internet had a field day with it. The comments were brutal. Dude really got folded like a lawn chair. Laughing at another man after stealing his wife is crazy, but getting your teeth knocked out right after? Even crazier. His dentist just upgraded his car. Never laugh at a man who has nothing left to lose. Jordan went quiet on social media after that. But it got worse for him. Apparently, he had been bragging about Anna at work, talking about how she was finally leaving her loser husband for him. Then the video surfaced. And suddenly, he wasn't the office playboy anymore. He was the guy who got his ass kicked in public. I heard through mutual friends that his boss wasn't happy about the bad image the fight brought to their company. And a week later, Jordan got fired. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Anna didn't take the divorce well. At first, she acted proud, confident, like she had been waiting for this moment. She even posted a photo on Instagram, a picture of her with a wine glass, the caption reading, "A fresh start. No regrets." But then, reality set in. Without my income, things changed fast. She had no financial safety net. No more luxury shopping. No more expensive brunches with friends. No more weekends at the spa. And Jordan? Broke. Jobless. Embarrassed. A month after she filed for divorce, a friend sent me a screenshot. Anna had deleted her Fresh Start post. And guess what? She had unfollowed Jordan. Karma moves fast. 2 months later, I met Anna for the last time. The final divorce hearing. She showed up looking different, less polished, a little more tired. She didn't look happy. We sat across from each other, barely speaking as our lawyers went through the papers. Her lawyer pushed again for spousal support. Mine shut it down. In the end, she got nothing. No money. No house. Just the mess she made. And before she left, she finally looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time since that night. "You really hate me now, don't you?" she said quietly. I leaned back, studying her. Did I hate her? No. But I didn't love her anymore, either. I smiled faintly. "No," I said. "I just don't care anymore." And that broke her. Because the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I was already gone. The divorce was finalized. I walked out of that office a free man. No baggage. No guilt. No regrets. Just a new life waiting for me. And as I got into my car, I checked my phone. A text from a friend. A simple message. "She's alone now." I put my phone away, started the engine, and drove off. Because I didn't care anymore. And that's the best revenge of all.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.